Welcome to Women Disrupting, a podcast amplifying the voice of women who are disrupting the status quo to create a more equitable, united, and peaceful world.
In this episode, I speak with Erann Royle. Erann is an Olympic weightlifting coach and competitive Olympic weightlifting athlete. She's been weightlifting for the last 12 years in Crossfit and focused Olympic weightlifting. Erann has competed at English and British championships. Her ambition for her coaching, especially women, is to spread knowledge that weightlifting can be for everyone. It's not all about competition. Erann wants women to know, in what has been traditionally a male-dominated sport, that Olympic weightlifting can also be about future-proofing your body and your mind, and also having some fun in the process. I hope you enjoy today's episode.
Okay, welcome Erann to my Women Disrupting podcast today. I've heard lots about you and I'm really excited for you to talk about Olympic weightlifting today, particularly for Olympic weightlifting for women. So would you like to start by just sharing your journey, not necessarily as an Olympic weightlifting coach, but how you got into Olympic weightlifting yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I don't have a sport or athletics background in kind of any way, shape or form. So when I was about 22, maybe even younger than that, a friend of mine opened a CrossFit gym, and CrossFit was kind of like a new thing then. So I didn't really know anything about it, but he was really selling it to me as like a thing that I should try. God knows why. So I turned up and did some classes and just basically got into CrossFit. And part of CrossFit, it's kind of a multi-discipline sport. It contains gymnastics, sort of more cardiovascular based stuff, and then there's a big element of strength training in there. And so alongside that is Olympic weightlifting, which is predominantly two lifts out of a big host of strength lifts. And so I did that for about 10 years or so. From there, competed at a reasonable level in CrossFit in a multitude of things. Always more focused on the strength stuff, always enjoyed that more, naturally like a bigger, more muscular girl, and kind of found it easy to put muscle on and build strength, things like that. So naturally lean more towards that stuff. I dabbled in a bit of Olympic weightlifting competing in about 2017 with a friend of mine who does it as well, which was fun, but kind of I lent more back into the CrossFit side of things after that and competing and stuff. And then about 2020, I had a pretty bad injury. So I tore some ligaments in my wrist and ended up having surgery and stuff. So really sort of built back, rehabbed and got back into weightlifting, into CrossFit over the space of about 12, 18 months, and started competing in CrossFit again and really enjoying it, but struggled to sort of keep my hand in all those different things. All the gymnastics and stuff was getting pain through the injury that I had, and also less time with work and things like that, because obviously got a full-time job as well. So thought I'll focus on what I am best at, what I'm strongest at, see what I can achieve. And also I really enjoy weightlifting and weightlifting training, and I've never really done it specifically. So then kind of fell into competing after that, into training just weightlifting for probably the past 2 years or so.
Okay, amazing. And what competitions have you entered? Because you said you compete at quite a high level, no?
In CrossFit or weightlifting?
In weightlifting.
In weightlifting. So yeah, I have done 2 British championships now at the senior sort of level. So obviously in terms of British weightlifting as an organisation, as a structure in weightlifting, there's like a whole section of youth competitions and youth areas up to like I think 21, and then there's the senior kind of competition which runs from about 21 to I think it might be 18 actually, up to 34, and then after that it's you into the masters realm of different age groups beyond that. So I've done two British senior championships. One was last month, and then I've done an English championship as well. So that was last year.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because Laura educated me on a previous podcast. The clean and jerk and the snatch, and that's what you're pointed on. Is that right?
Yeah, so at the most fundamental level, so a snatch is where you will move a barbell from the floor to overhead in one movement, and then a clean and jerk is you'll move the barbell from the floor to overhead in two movements. So snatch is one, and then clean and jerk is the two movements in the other bit. So yeah, you get marked on your most weight lifted out of 3 attempts for each. They get added together, and that's your total. And everyone competes at the senior level, you'll compete in your weight class. So there's 10 weight classes for male and female, I think, off the top of my head. And then when you get into the masters level, it's your weight class plus your age group. So it kind of narrows down a little bit more in the masters level.
And the kind of weights that people are lifting, I did do a bit of research before, is insane. Like I did look at the world record for it was the women's snatch, clean and jerk at 53 kg, because they have different categories, that's right, for different weights.
Yes.
Fair. And this, I might have got this wrong, so if you think I'm wrong, it's 87 kg for a snatch. Does that sound about right for a world record?
Yeah, I think that's probably like I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they changed the weight classes slightly. So I think it used to be under 53s, but I think it's probably under 55 kilos now. But yeah, that's around about that in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get a bit heavier, I think at the Olympics this time, there's the under 49 kilo class. Right. And there's women in that class that will snatch over 90 kilos.
Oh my!
And they are very small ladies, so it's very impressive.
It really is. Do you mind me asking what your snatch is, your PB snatch?
My max is 82.
And that is insane in itself.
I'm much heavier than 49 kilos. I'll just put that out there.
It's still very impressive. What about the clean and jerk was 109 kilograms for the 53 kg world record. What's your clean and jerk?
What is my clean and jerk? 107.
Wow.
Obviously, like the heavier that you get. So my weight class, I kind of switch between under 76 and under 81. So like the world records that people are lifting in the 81 class, for example, for women is like 160 kilo clean and jerk, for example. So it's putting that in perspective. Like at the Olympics, the weightlifting starts tomorrow and runs like through to the end of the weekend, and there's the 81 kilo class there, and they'll be lifting like around in the 150s, 160s. So it's pretty cool.
It really is. It's just like so impressive that weight can be just like elevated and above your body when you are significantly less than that weight yourself.
Yeah. Pound for pound is very impressive. Yeah,
it is. So I'm curious as to how does somebody go from not weightlifting at all, not doing Olympic weightlifting at all, to becoming like a competitor? I mean, you've talked about your journey, but just talk to me about, you must have a community of female Olympic weightlifters. Like, how are they getting involved in this? Because I don't see it as a common, sport that you would get into. Like women's football is getting a bit more popular these days. It might be easy to join a women's football team, but if a young person was like, or a woman was like, oh, I want to get into that Olympic weightlifting, it's quite underground still, no? So what are their journeys?
Yeah, it is. And I think its connection to CrossFit has kind of boosted it up over the last 10 years or so, because a lot more CrossFit gyms have opened up, and a lot of them obviously coach, well, all of them will coach some element of Olympic weightlifting because they do those movements quite regularly. A lot of them will have lifting classes within that. Some of the elements of the CrossFit coaching, like qualifications, have got weightlifting specific. So some of it will come from, if you're lucky enough to obviously be a member of a CrossFit gym and get involved that way. I know a lot of people that have kind of gone that route and ended up competing in that realm. But I think that relies a lot on the type of coaches that you've got in those gyms. So some are better than others. I was quite lucky in that at the CrossFit gym that I trained at, they were all really good coaches, and there were some opportunities to get involved and learn a bit more about weightlifting. But more so now, there are a lot more weightlifting clubs around specifically. There's not loads, but there are more weightlifting clubs, and British weightlifting as an organisation really try and get themselves out there and kind of latch onto the CrossFit thing and other things like that to try and promote the sport more. Like more recently, British championships and English championships have been sort of attached to larger fitness festival type competitions so that more people that are out of that space can get some visibility of the sport itself. So, and I know that some of the employees of British weightlifting have some schemes within primary schools now, high schools now. I've seen some on their social media and seen on the newsletters about them getting involved in children's PE lessons and teaching them some weightlifting. So that's really cool to see, is like a 9, 10, 11-year-olds doing some snatches and some clean and jerks is really cool. So I know that there's a lot more kind of community engagement going on now as well in that space.
Well, that's exciting to know that it's going in schools like that and being read into PE lessons. So why might a woman want to get involved in Olympic weightlifting just as a hobby?
Probably for a mixture of different reasons. Obviously, for a lot of people I know that have maybe found it a bit later on in life, I think once you kind of get past that sort of stereotype stigma of it being strength sport and that attachment to kind of a physique image, I think confidence wise, kind of empowerment in yourself wise, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your body is a big one for me, because it kind of becomes less about what your body looks like and more about what it can physically do. So moving away from all that body image stuff, I think weightlifting, it kind of contributes a lot in that space. And also health, there are a lot, I mean, I don't profess to be a women's coach by any means. I'm sure Laura covered a lot more about that kind of thing than me, but I know that the health benefits of strength training for kind of your bones, your joints, all that kind of stuff is really positive. But for me, it's always been more about sort of challenging those stereotypes of what training is, what strength sports are, what sort of like physical power and all that kind of thing is about. As being a woman, it's not just about going doing an hour on the treadmill or whatever. You can go into a gym and squat 100 kilos if you want, or work towards that, or have different goals that aren't just like the traditional fitness goals of women, which I resent.
Yes, I hear you. And it's good the way you've explained that, to understand that you don't have to do Olympic weightlifting. The name in itself is misleading, and go down the Olympic weightlifting competitions, do you? It can just be a hobby for the reasons that you've just mentioned. So what is it that made you want to also do your Olympic weightlifting coaching qualifications and become a coach?
I really like to see more women involved in the sport, and I'm not a specifically female coach at all. I feel like I really enjoy weightlifting personally, and I feel like over the years I've gained kind of a lot of knowledge about it and about how people can enjoy their training in the weightlifting space and really get the most out of it. And I've thought about coaching for ages, and I looked into some CrossFit coaching and other things like that. And it's sort of my way of giving back to something that gave so much to me. So like I've made all my friends that I have now are pretty much predominantly from a fitness, like a weightlifting space. And it's just in terms of confidence for me, and I suppose just general life, health and well-being, I've gained so much from the community of strength sports and Olympic weightlifting that it's just my way of wanting to do a bit back. And if I can help some women or whoever, but at the moment, all my lifters are women. So if I can help them kind of find some confidence, find some new goals, challenge themselves, and then it's kind of what I was aiming for.
Amazing. It's interesting, isn't it, that you've attracted a lot of women clients, because I guess that's quite appealing to have a female Olympic weightlifting coach for some women. And I imagine there aren't any out there, or were there? What was the training like, and was there many women on the course?
So I did the British weightlifting as an organisation that I've mentioned a few times. They have their own weightlifting coaching sort of methodology and all that kind of thing, training courses, as do most kind of countries that have a weightlifting program. They tend to have their own model, their own technical model, and how they like to coach. So I did the qualifications for British weightlifting, and there's not tons of female coaches. There are more now than there used to be. I think in the really high level space, like the Olympic space, there's really not loads. I think there's an American coach that was maybe the first American female coach to coach at an Olympics or something like that, like in the last Olympics. So there's not a grand old like bunch of female weightlifting coaches, but it's more prevalent now than it used to be. And I think, again, CrossFit and that kind of functional fitness space has got a lot to kind of answer for in that space, in that it's pushed that a lot more, and more people got involved in it through that, I think. And British weightlifting as well have kind of upped their ante of wanting to push stuff out. And the more that, so we've got Emily Campbell is our main weightlifter in the Olympic space. She won a silver medal in Tokyo. She's competing this weekend in Paris, and she, through her success and her sort of personality, things like that, she's really raised the profile of female weightlifters as well, which has been really cool. So from a coaching perspective and an athlete perspective, because she's obviously a coach as well, so it's really up the ante as well. So yeah, there's not loads, but there is definitely a space for female Olympic weightlifting coaching, more so than maybe there has been.
Yeah, that makes sense, because when I was talking to Steph McLaughlin, who's commercial manager at Lewis FC, which is the first gender equal football club in the world, she said the same about football. There's not many women managers out there, but I think once there are more female footballers, like more female Olympic weightlifters, they'll then go on career progression wise, won't they, to become coaches like yourself. I'm interested as well, just on a technical point of view, this just pops up in my head when you were talking about the training. How much is the ability to lift that weight, that really heavy weight above your head, down to strength, and how much is it down to technique?
It's a trade-off. I'd probably say a higher percentage, maybe like, I mean, there'll be people out there that'll have their own opinions, but like 60-40 technique versus strength, only from the perspective of actually being able to pick the barbell up and do a thing, because the strength aspect is really important, and everything in weightlifting, in Olympic weightlifting and kind of powerlifting, all those things is underpinned by how strong you are, obviously. But with technique and understanding of technique comes confidence, and comes kind of that understanding of your own ability and confidence in yourself to be able to do it. And outside of technique and strength, probably overarching like 90% of weightlifting is mental, in terms of if you're approaching a barbell and you don't think you can do it, you won't be able to do it. So definitely having the understanding and the confidence in your own technique will be more, it'll pay off more than just having that raw strength angle. And I know people that are super duper strong and can lift wholly a lot of weight, but with changes to understanding of technique and, improvements in that space, they just kind of skyrocket. So
right.
It's a trade-off. It's definitely a trade-off, and there's a balance to find there. But a lot of it is kind of centered towards more of even a mental standpoint than a technical or physical standpoint.
So if a woman is sort of thinking, oh, I'm quite intrigued by this Olympic weightlifting, but they don't have, because we've talked about how women have some women, like Laura saying she's got a predisposition to building muscle mass quite quickly. And you talked about that yourself, but some women aren't built like that.
No.
So to what extent is Olympic weightlifting appropriate for all of women, if at all?
I'd say it's appropriate for anyone that's interested in it, because that's the kind of the whole point of having the body weight sort of categories and that kind of thing, is that you're only ever competing against people that are the same size as you. So and obviously there are like genetic exceptions to those rules, where it's like any sport, you're going to have your freak athletes that are at that Olympic level, and then you're going to have people that just do it because it's interesting and it's a bit of fun, like local competition. So from a competitive perspective, there are obviously in the UK, there's the highest level of British championships and English championships that you can compete at. But the kind of the foundation for weightlifting competitions in the UK are the tier 3 competitions, which are the local competitions that local gyms put on and people come and basically compete. But it's kind of all levels across the board. So I've been to local competitions where the opening snatch has been like an empty barbell, and people, it's their first competition. They've only been weightlifting for 6 weeks, that kind of thing. And then the group's finished on obviously people that are trying to get qualification totals for XYZ. So it's a real open sport for beginners, for people that might not think, oh, well, I'm not strong, so I can't go and do it. But you absolutely can. And there's a whole different spectrum of angles that you can kind of attack weightlifting from and learn. It doesn't have to be competitive, but it can be, even if you're not, lifting 100 kilos. It really doesn't matter. Is the point. It's how that person, if they're interested in it and want to learn, or they just enjoy it. It's like everyone that would come and watch a competition or that are involved in clubs, they don't care what you're lifting. They just want you to enjoy yourself and be safe and have a fun time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And the way you describe it there sounds incredibly inclusive, actually, which is great to hear. Obviously, when women start taking up spaces that are traditionally dominated and belonged, I say that with inverted commas, to men, there's always pushback. So talk to me about your own experience of any pushback that you've had as a female Olympic weightlifter.
I think I've been relatively fortunate that I've not had much, but I think that's maybe because of the spaces that I put myself in, because my experience of gyms has been the more functional fitness weightlifting gym type thing, because that's just where I ended up. Like I say, I've not got a background in sport or anything like that, so I've never really taken up a lot of time in commercial gyms and things like that. But from the experiences that I do have from being somebody that is kind of naturally, well, I say naturally stronger. I work really hard on my strength. It's like I didn't come out of the womb being able to do stuff, but like someone that is, I was saying, and as you said, Laura touched on about kind of having muscle mass, being a bit bigger, and then being in gyms where you are lifting a decent amount of weight. I've had people like blokes that, and it is majority men that will sort of look and kind of stare. And I've had people, on the few times that I have trained in commercial gyms, I've had people come up next to me and try and put the same weight on and start doing what I'm doing.
No way.
I think just to maybe prove to themselves that they can do that, which try not to laugh whilst I'm in the situation, but internally just like, oh my goodness me, like what is happening? And I've had people like in gyms that have maybe been doing the same exercises as me, Olympic weightlifting wise. They've not wanted to train next to me because I might be able to lift more weight than them. If they've been kind of men, and I do understand it from like that sort of their own confidence perspective of, oh my God, there's a girl next to me and she's lifting more than me. Like what on earth's that about? But that would obviously be off-putting to people like women that are just getting into a sport, or maybe don't feel as confident as me with what I'm doing. Because I've like I said, I've been doing it for a really long time. I'm in my own little world when I'm training. I don't care what other people are looking at me for. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I've been lucky, and I have really good relationships with the sort of men that I train with, and still do now. And they just respect me as a person, as a weightlifter, as whatever. So, but I know that in some of those more commercial spaces, there's a bit of difficulty in being a stronger female and getting stared at. But if you can cope with that, then you're pretty all right.
Yeah, it sounds like you can hold your own, and it's great to hear that you've been supported. You don't feel like that's been a common theme throughout your career. Actually,
no,
both men and women have supported you along the way, which is comforting. So to wrap up, you've already talked a little bit about a way into Olympic weightlifting through CrossFit, but just give our listeners maybe a little bit more advice on if they were thinking about getting into Olympic weightlifting, maybe as well, or in addition to CrossFit? What would the next step be for them?
So if they were looking for a weightlifting club, so there are some kind of dotted around depending on where you are from. The British weightlifting website has a club map, so you can go on there and see where the nearest kind of weightlifting club to you is. So you can, and a lot of those places will offer like a learn to lift course or class or whatever. I know that the gym I train at in West Horton Hybrid Performance Centre, it's not British weightlifting affiliated, but there's one of the coaches there does like a learn to lift kind of class, a course that you can join. So there are a lot of either functional fitness gyms or spaces like that offer those courses. But like I say, the weightlifting website has a map on there that you can kind of search for, and that would be the place that I would say is the best place to get into something like that, because sort of fundamentals of weightlifting is that technique stuff, and that's where you're going to get the most intrigue and the most enjoyment out of it, is learning that technique. So yeah, the British weightlifting website, or if you're from the Northwest, like I say, Hybrid Performance Centre, or a friend of mine, Sally Thompson Taylor, she has a weightlifting club at CrossFit Blackpool. So she has her own weightlifting club up in on Fylde Coast. So shameless plug for my friend Sally there.
And do you just coach sort of more pros, or do you coach all levels?
Yeah, all levels. So I don't really super promote my weightlifting coaching. I do it as like an on the side hobby just because I really enjoy it, and I'm always open to having like new people come and do some coaching with me. I have ladies like Laura that are aspiring to compete at that sort of higher level, and I've got a couple of other ladies that have just started their competitive weightlifting journey, and then some that just do it on the side of other sports just because they enjoy it and want to learn something new. So, and my friend Sally and I, as I just said, we occasionally do women's weightlifting workshops as well. So obviously a bit of learning about weightlifting, but also all things like female strength sport kind of community stuff as well. So we do run those from time to time. But yeah, I don't just coach super competitive athletes. It's kind of everybody, just sharing the love of weightlifting.
Oh, I love it. And have you got any competitions coming up soon?
So yeah, I've just done British Championships last month. I will be maybe doing a local competition at Fylde Coast in September, and then building towards English Championships in December. So where Laura's looking to compete at English Masters as well. So that should be super fun.
Oh, it sounds it. Good luck with that. Thank you so much, Erin. I've totally enjoyed our conversation today, and I could speak with you forever. But good luck, and thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. I'm always looking for disruptive women as guests. If you think you'd make a great guest or know anyone who would, then please email me with the details. You can email info@yasminarifcoaching.com. More details in today's show notes. Remember to show up and share your truth, because the world is hungry for women who show up and tell the truth, unafraid and free, expanding to the very edges of who they were always meant to be.